What's up, everyone? How's it going? I'm here with the ever fantastic Rotterdam, Kevin Vanderkoy. Thank you so much to Esports Heaven. If you guys aren't watching this video on Esports Heaven, then you should go do so. There are timestamps linked on Esports Heaven if that's your cup of tea. And if you guys want an MP3 of this video, then you can check out my Patreon. Make sure to follow me on Twitter and here on YouTube stuff too, so that you can get all the up-to-date stuff that I'm working on and everything like that. And thanks so much for checking out the video. Rotterdam, how's it going, man? How are you today?
I'm good. I'm a little lazy. I woke up incredibly late. The life of a streamer, since it's summer right now, and it's actually the summers in the Netherlands are not that good, but it can get pretty hot during the day. And I really dislike streaming when it's like sunny outside and it's hot, because I don't know, it just doesn't work for me. So in general, I like to stream at night, and then I wake up pretty damn late if I'm not doing anything. So that's kind of what happened today. But other than that, I'm doing good.
Nice. Well, I'm glad to hear that you're doing okay. So first things first, this is kind of like a burning question that I had while I was doing the overlays and everything like that. Rotterdam 08, Rotterdam 08. Why is all your social media, why does it all have 08 on it? Is that like the year 2008? What's the significance there, man?
No, not the year 2008, more like the year 1908, because you can see the flag behind me. It's my favorite football team, Feyenoord. It's the biggest team from Rotterdam, one of the biggest teams in the Netherlands. In my eyes, the biggest, because I'm biased, obviously. And obviously, I couldn't really call myself Rotterdam because that account is pretty much taken everywhere. I ended up with this nickname in a very silly way. Like the TLDR is that a long, long time ago, I played some Warcraft with Dutch friends, and we played on the American server, like 3v3 or 4v4 Warcraft, you know, just like what gamers do when they're young, just have some fun. And we all called ourselves after our city. So one of them was Amsterdam, the other one was The Hague, the other one was called like Monster or something, wherever that guy lived. And I called myself Rotterdam, since that's where I was living and that's where I grew up. Little did I know, 12 years later, I'd still be playing video games and I'd still be attached to the name Rotterdam, because that was the first time I was actually like happy with an account, and I liked the account name, so I stuck to it. But yeah, then I realized when social media came out, I was like, well, you know, I like to think I'm pretty important, but I'm probably not more important than the city, so I can't call myself Rotterdam. So I was like, well, I'm born on the 8th of May, so that's one of the reasons why I like 8. But also Feyenoord was founded in 1908, so I was like, well, I'll just call myself Rotterdam 08. That should be available. Most of the time it's not, actually, but fortunately I was able to grab the Twitter handle and a couple of other handles, like Instagram and stuff. So that's how I ended up with it.
The name might have just been kind of like a thing that just happened, but it really seems like you have a much deeper attachment to Rotterdam than that. I mean, your Twitch banners, your social media banners are like the Rotterdam skyline. Someone on Twitter said that you have a tattoo, a Rotterdam tattoo.
Mm-hmm.
What's the like, what makes the city so important to you in your life?
I mean, it's not that I think it's the most important thing in the world, but like many people, I'm proud of where I came from, or proud is maybe not the right word because it's kind of silly, right? It's not like I decided where I was born, but I generally love Rotterdam. I think it's a great city. I think the people are nice. In the Netherlands, Rotterdam is seen as a city where, you know, it's a no-nonsense city. You know, people just work hard and don't complain too much. So if people who watch my stream will be like, well, then stop complaining about cyclones. But in general, you know, that's just kind of like, I like the attitude that the city has. I love the football team. And I don't know, it's just the tattoo was more because I have lived abroad for a long time, and even though I'm always feel like lucky and blessed that I had the opportunity to live in Germany and live in America, obviously I always missed home and, you know, missed family and friends. And since gaming has been such a huge part of my life, pretty much, you know, a tremendous part, almost half of my life by now, since, you know, I started professional gaming when I was 18, I was like, well, I can get a tattoo of Rotterdam. A lot of people actually in the city have a similar tattoo, but for me it had extra meaning because of Warcraft and Starcraft. And I'm a big Feyenoord fan as well, and obviously Feyenoord is directly linked to the city. So I had 3 reasons to get a tattoo, and I was like, well, that seems like plenty of reasons to me. Other than that, there's nothing truly special about it. The only thing I can say is just check it out for yourself one day. I think it's an awesome city, and if you ever have the chance, don't go to Amsterdam like literally everybody does, and you know, do the cliche things that people do in Amsterdam. But Rotterdam is a pretty beautiful city with very nice people.
I was actually lucky enough to go to Europe for a little bit on like a school trip in high school. Mm-hmm. And the Netherlands was my favorite country by a county mile. It's such a beautiful place to be. And Amsterdam is actually kind of a weak spot, I would say. Like, no offense to Amsterdam in itself or anything like that, but if you have to take in like one place in the Netherlands, I would say probably not Amsterdam as well.
Amsterdam is very different. It doesn't really represent what daily life in the Netherlands is all about. It's, it's huge in the tourism sector and especially in the summer, it's just crazy. I mean, it does create a nice little vibe if you're into that, there's plenty of tourists and if you're lucky, there is good weather. I can see why people like it, but I don't think Amsterdam represents what life in the Netherlands is truly about. I definitely love this country. It's just a very solid place. I always say when people ask me that I don't think the Netherlands is the most exciting place on earth because it's not, but it's just very decent. Like life is good here, everything is arranged well, public transport is good, people are nice. Like, what more can you ask for?
Kind of tying into that, you're someone who I would personally say you're a pretty patriotic Dutch person. Does that kind of tie into your relationship with Dutch esports in general? I know that you have some friendships with the Dutch Starcraft pros, but do you know very many people in Dutch esports in general? And can you tell us anything about like the Dutch esports scene?
To be honest, not that much, not as much as you would perhaps expect, and that's because I've always been incredibly focused on my own scene. I've never been somebody who like tries to hop on every train that comes around, and it's all about networking and stuff. I don't care that much about that kind of stuff. I just get along very well with guys like Red in the past, who's still I consider a friend. He's just a super funny, good dude. These days, like at events, I always meet Harstem and Utermo, and it's hard for me not to root to them because they're funny guys. They've got a good sense of humor, and it's nice. Whenever you always talk in English at these events, it's nice to throw a little Dutch in between there as well. But it's not necessarily because we're so patriotic or because I think that, the Dutch are better than everybody else. It's just they're good guys and, we come from the same country, so we have that in common. So it's only normal that you interact with each other. And obviously, I like to see people that I like do well, and especially when it comes to, them having a Dutch background as well. But when it comes to other esports, I honestly don't know that many people. I'm not that tight with a few of the organizations since I kind of miss like the glory days of Starcraft when it came to the Netherlands since I was never here. So I didn't make that many connections in that regard.
As many people must know, surely, you got your start in esports in Warcraft. I'm really curious to kind of hear, what was the transition like from Warcraft 3 to Starcraft for yourself and for the Warcraft scene at large? Was there any blowback in the community, kind of trying to get people to stay in Warcraft 3? Did you have any trepidations about transitioning to a new RTS?
I don't think anybody had any delusions that Warcraft 3 was still going to be, a top-tier esport with Starcraft 2 on the horizon. I think everybody just accepted it, whether you like it or not. To be honest, like, even though I went from Warcraft to Starcraft, I actually started playing a lot of Heroes of Newerth towards the end of Warcraft. Like, I played a lot of Dota 1 as well with all the Warcraft pros back in the days, and the Dota guys that are millionaires right now, I used to play a little Dota with them too. That's kind of funny to think about. But to be honest, like Warcraft 3 is one of the greatest games ever made. It's still my favorite game ever made. I genuinely think it was revolutionary in so many ways. And just yesterday, I saw a funny tweet, somebody saying that like, without Warcraft, there wouldn't be Starcraft. Without Warcraft, there wouldn't be Dota. Without Dota, there wouldn't be League. And Warcraft is basically the Jesus of esports, and I can definitely get behind it. Like, it's just such a good damn game in so many ways. But I have to admit that when I started playing it a lot in, let's say, 2003, I got pro in 2005. Around 2009, I wouldn't say I was bored of the game, but we didn't have Twitch and stuff, so there wasn't that much to play for. I was getting a little older, so I was kind of thinking of like other aspects in life as well. Maybe I should focus on something else. And I still casted Warcraft 3 because, obviously I was still very good, but I didn't have the same drive that I had in 2005 or 2006, where I genuinely wanted to become one of the best. So it was more just that the moment that the StarCraft 2 trailer was launched, I was actually at a Warcraft 3 qualifier that day for a tournament in Korea. I did win that one, and basically everybody just looked at each other like, oh my god, StarCraft is coming. And I don't think there was a single person in that room that wasn't exciting, so I don't think there was any backlash. I know there is still some minor diehard Warcraft community out there that would despise anybody that moved to StarCraft 2, but I think on that point you're being unrealistic, and I think that's not very fair, RTS people should stick together and not fight with each other.
You mentioned for just a second in there, just a little bit, you played some Han, some Heroes of Newerth, and you were actually the captain of the Fnatic Heroes of Newerth squad for a hot minute. You were the captain like during the closed beta of Han. For anyone who may not be aware, Heroes of Newerth was supposed to be like the MOBA game that would take the reins from original Dota mod.
And should have been, I'll add.
Do you think?
Yes, it's a great game.
A lot of people. A lot of people said that LoL was too casual to be a competitive game. Are you one of those people that held that belief at the time?
Maybe when I was a little angry young man on the internet, but people should enjoy whatever they want. But if you ask me back then, like to me that was not even a comparison. Like I looked at League of Legends and I was like, lol, well that's kind of cute for my brother, but not for me. Like like Han, I thought Han was fantastic because Dota 2, or excuse me, Dota 1 was already so much fun to play, but it was a nightmare to get into games. And then to just actually have a client where you could press on a button and you have automated matchmaking, like it's also normal these days. But back then that was like, oh my God, because when I played a lot of Dota, I had to go through rooms of like public Dota channels where it would take like 9 minutes to set up a game. And then the moment that somebody would die, they would leave. And you're like, oh my God, now we got to go through it again. And people would always fight. Like sometimes it generally took an hour to get a good Dota game going. So when I could actually just log on and play Heroes of Newerth, like, oh my God, I grinded that game like nothing. And it was so fun. I was the captain of Fnatic, but in all honesty, that was more based on my name than how good I actually was. I definitely was pretty decent, but I learned very quickly that when I started playing with guys like Trixie and Rexy, I was like, okay, these guys are way better than me, And then I did, I kind of found a role for myself, but it was funny because when I played Han, I like to play mid, I like to play carry, but I was realistic enough to realize that, okay, if we want to win, I shouldn't carry because Trixie and Rexy are way better than me. So I kind of started playing like bottom lane support, and that kind of stuff wasn't for me. That kind of took the joy out of it. Even though winning is fun, I just felt that this wasn't going to make me happy. So when Starcraft 2K was announced and the beta came out, I kind of dropped Han and never played a single game again.
We're very lucky as a scene to have stolen you from Heroes of Newerth.
I still feel like, it was more like a temporary thing, It's kind of just to get over Warcraft 3 a little bit and kill the anticipation before Starcraft 2. Because Warcraft was fun, but, after 7-8 years on the same maps and there was no change in the meta, and especially certain things were just never changed. I think eventually they did change it, like Tome of Experience, but there's only so many orc versus humans on Turtle Rock that I can play until I get a little tired of it. And after 7 years, I kind of had it.
You're also kind of involved in poker, like I don't know if you'd call it professional poker or high-level poker. I'm not really sure. How do you consider your involvement in the poker scene? You stream it a lot. You go to a lot of the big events, I guess, or some of the big events. What do you consider yourself to be in poker?
A casual fish. No, I love the game and I played it for a long time. Even when Warcraft 3 was out, I already played some poker on the side. But it was always like I started and I stopped. I started and I stopped. Obviously because I wasn't a winning player. I mean, if I was winning thousands of dollars every day, then I'd probably played a little more. But when I was in the US, I couldn't play for a long time, only in the local casino at Commerce, which is a casino near Central LA, South Central LA. And I actually really enjoyed it. And I did well over the summer, when I played, I play a very... low limit, so to speak, like $100 or $200 buy-in. But after 50 hours or 60 hours of play, I was up like 4,000. So I was like, man, I think I'm actually finally getting a little better at poker. This is pretty awesome. But then eventually I hit a little bit of a downswing again. I was like, God, maybe this is not for me, because I started losing again. But fortunately, there's a lot of poker companies who see huge opportunity in Twitch and streaming poker, and they feel like they should brand out to the Twitch community because they think they can grow poker again. As people complain about Starcraft being dead, but the poker community has been taking massive hits online for a long time now, ever since certain regulations changed, especially in the US. So for me right now, it's nothing more than just fun. It's a side activity. I love Starcraft. I love playing Starcraft, but if you do it all the time, it's very nice to have just something else that you're interested in and that you're focused on. And poker is a nice little getaway from me for the days where one-base Cyclone is getting too much for me. But right now, I have no immediate plans on becoming a pro poker player. I actually think that's a lot harder than people think. Just looking at numbers and cards all day is, I think, even more draining than playing Starcraft all day.
So talking a little bit about Starcraft, your very first foray into casting Starcraft 2 was at Home Story Cup 1, the very first Home Story Cup.
Hmm.
and that kind of like kickstarted your casting of the game. But do you think that you probably would have ended up as a commentator caster for StarCraft 2 regardless of casting Home Story Cup 1? Or was it really that tournament that gave you the confidence to continue down the path that you were kind of taking in Warcraft 3?
In all honesty, when Starcraft 2 was announced, I had no ambitions of desires of becoming a caster immediately, as I didn't know that that was going to be a full-time job. Like I did cast probably around 15 to 20 offline, maybe a little less. Let's say like 10 offline Warcraft events, and I went into the ESL studio like 10 or 15 times. So I casted a decent amount of Warcraft. But when StarCraft 2 came out, like the competitive drive in me was not definitely not thinking about, hey, I should like try casting this because I really didn't know. Back then, like Twitch wasn't really around yet, so I didn't know how much things were going to be streamed. But it's not a thought that crossed my mind once. All I thought was like, this game is going to be awesome. I'm going to play in it. I'm going to compete. I'm going to travel to events again, just like I did in Warcraft. You know, this is going to be really fun. So I just started playing a lot immediately. And then, yeah, Dennis left ESL, Take this, and he's like, yeah, I'm going to do Take TV from home. I'm going to work for myself, and I want to organize this tournament. You should come. I was like, what? No, I was like, I never played Brood War. I'm like, what am I gonna do here? Like, I don't want to cast this. He's like, come on, I just need somebody. We have a couple of players. It's just fun, man. I was like, ah. I was like, well, you know, I played only Protoss. I literally did not play a single game of Terran and Zerg up to that point in my life. Like, I played 4 games of Brood War. All of them were Protoss. And then I played Protoss as soon as StarCraft 2 came out, and I never gave the other races a try once. I was like, well, I can come, but I can only cast Protoss games because I literally don't play the other races. Like, I didn't even know the difference between a tech lab and a reactor, I think. Like, I didn't even know how it worked. So he's like, ah, it's going to be fine. And then actually, I ended up casting everything because nobody else wanted to do anything. And even though it was far from perfect, it seemed like a lot of people thought I was doing a pretty decent job because I did play a lot of StarCraft 2 already. So I picked up on it very fast. And, you know, they said I had a decent understanding of the game and I made it fun. So then when Dennis told me that ESL was looking for a full-time employee, and I was reading the comments on the internet, people saying I did a good job, I was like, I was like, should I try? I was like, I don't know, because my parents were kind of like, well, my mom is always supportive, but my dad was whining a little bit. He's like, when are you going to get a real job? And I was like, I was like, well, you know, I was like, in Dutch you say, niet geschoten is altijd mis. You know, if you don't try, you'll never succeed. So I was like, I'll just send an email. And they kind of had somebody in mind already, but since I did a bunch of Warcraft events for them, they said that they'd call me back. And then a few weeks later, they said like, okay, we're gonna hire you full time in Germany. I was like, cool, I guess I'm a caster now, you know. So that's kind of how it went. I don't know if I wouldn't have casted Home Story Cup 1. I generally don't know. There is a chance because I'm not somebody who starts something and then just leaves it. Like I really like to be deeply involved with a scene. So there's a good chance that I would have ended up as a caster or maybe as a panel host or maybe as just an analyzer or maybe as a reporter. But I don't know, it's hard to say. Maybe I would have been a 3-time GSL champion. Maybe this is the worst decision I ever made. I don't know.
One of the most memorable nights to me in StarCraft 2 history was the night where you and Todd and Nathanius had some
I
show
actually,
matches.
when you started your sentence, I was like, is he going to talk about the drunk night?
That was a real experience. So you guys were just chilling. I think it was after or before a Red Bull Battlegrounds. I want to say I can't quite remember.
Yeah. Yeah, the idea was that Todd said like, hey, let's do a fun stream. We're just gonna chill and have fun, and we're gonna fundraise money so we can send a couple of people to Red Bull Battlegrounds. I think it was Detroit or Atlanta, one of the two. So we're gonna pay for that trip and let's just have a fun stream. And I said, all right, let's do it. So that's how it happened.
Nice. So the stream was really fun. You guys got super turnt, and it was fantastic. It's one of those moments that like I would say is really memorable. And then the next day, the VOD got deleted like right away. Did you guys ever get into any trouble, or was there ever any like issues that kind of arose from you guys doing that?
There wasn't that much trouble. I don't know. I think I deleted the VOD because somebody pointed out something that could potentially get us in a tiny bit of trouble. I'm not 100% sure. But I think that Todd still uploaded a lot of his highlights, so it could have also just been a thing that I did for Todd because I didn't want to have people watching it on my Twitch. I said like, let's just do it on your YouTube because Todd was actually the mastermind behind the fundraising and the nice gesture of sending 1 or 2 Americans to the event. The only thing that I remember is that, the next day we had to cast WCS, and I was all right. Like I was fine. I didn't go too crazy, but Nathan, that bottle of Jameson, I think that really got the best of him. As he said that night before, he never had a hangover in his life. Well, he definitely had one the next morning. So I think we had an email saying that it was fun and that they appreciated what we tried to do, because in the end of the day, it was not us being like, like, oh, let's get drunk and be stupid crazy. Like, we actually tried to do something nice for the scene. We hosted a fun little tournament, and we paid the journey of two people, I believe, to the tournament. But I think they said that we shouldn't do that anymore before a WCS day. Dearly noted.
I remember you saying once upon a time on stream, and I'm sure you've said it more than once. I think you mentioned it even while we've been talking, I'm pretty sure. You're a real one game kind of guy. When you're playing a game, you're really on board that game in particular. During 2013, 2014, in some of the declining years of StarCraft 2 viewership and interest, a lot of your peers were migrating to other esports titles that were on the rise or already established, like League of Legends or Heroes of the Storm or Hearthstone. Despite being that really like one game kind of guy, were you ever tempted to leave StarCraft or kind of split your StarCraft work with something else and try and bridge yourself into another scene, even just as a side gig?
Not really, to be honest, as there was just not a single game that I would generally feel I could put that much passion and hours into and actually enjoy it. Like the only game that I could see myself do it is Dota 2. The problem is that I didn't enjoy Dota 2 as much as I did enjoy Dota 1. And I thought Han was better as well. I think Dota 2 has improved tremendously. And maybe if Dota 2 was as good as it is now in 2013, then maybe I would have kind of given it a go, or at least just played a lot on the side. But it's just not something that ever really crossed my mind. I don't know. I never felt threatened either. And when people always say like the declining years of StarCraft, like every year of StarCraft 2 has been for me personally better and more enjoyable than the year before, and I really mean that. Um, like, of course, there were definitely things that I wish were different and things that I wish I could have been part of or something, but like 2011 is not like the golden year of StarCraft for me, Like in 2011, I got paid minimum wage to work 40 hours a week at the office, and I was living the dream because I thought this was super awesome, I was like, oh my God, I get to cast like StarCraft a couple of weeks, and at the end of the month, I get a paycheck. This is so sick. But little did I know, people were getting like 20 times as much as me, for doing a single event. And I'm like, later on, but I didn't know that. So I never felt that like, I was on the decline or my game was on the decline. And also, it's just not like Blizzard to suddenly drop StarCraft. Like the only thing I'd be worried about it, and obviously, like you have to be smart and professional. You have to think about your future. If this was a non-Blizzard game, then maybe in 2014 I would have been like, maybe I should try this or that. But since I know that Blizzard will never just drop StarCraft, Blizzard is a company that does incredibly well, and I mean the CEO Mike Morhaime, he loves StarCraft, so like we are blessed in that regard. Like, so I was never worried that there was suddenly not gonna be any more tournaments, and I just kind of always felt there had to be at least one RTS, and I prefer to focus on RTS. Like that's the genre I love, that's the genre I grew up with, and to me, it would feel fake when I'm suddenly be like, "Hey guys, Overwatch is coming out. I'm so excited." It's like, Overwatch is a fun game. Don't get me wrong, but like, what do I have in Overwatch? And I've never wanted to be a commentator if I wasn't at least somewhat decent at the game. If I wouldn't be like, if I at least be like credible, if I have credibility to my name. And I think in RTS I have that. Even if I'm not world's best StarCraft player, I'm pretty decent. I've been GM for like 3, 4 years in a row, pretty much every single season. Every now and then, I can even take games of like top players if I, play incredibly well and get a little lucky. So I think I'm pretty credible in StarCraft. I would never want to be part of an Overwatch broadcast when I'm not even good in the game. That's just not who I am, because I've never felt that I'm a commentator because I speak so well or because I'm so witty or because I'm so clever. I think the main reason why I'm part of big StarCraft shows is because I know the scene incredibly well, I know the players well, and I know the game very well. So, I have some stories to tell, and I'm very knowledgeable. I would never want to be part of a show if I don't have those things going for me because I feel that's where my strengths are. And if you remove those, I feel like I'd just be making a fool of myself. That's not for me.
I will kind of I want to kind of point out you remarked that you were pretty decent at StarCraft.
Mhm.
You've been Grandmaster. Haven't you been Grandmaster every season since like late 2012?
Yeah, pretty much.
Grandmaster is like the top 1% of players right now, and like formerly even less. Is that really like the cutoff for pretty decent? Like, wouldn't you consider yourself to be a pretty skilled player actually, rather than just like pretty decent? Aren't you being a little too humble?
No, I think it has a lot to do with the past. Since in Warcraft 3, I was definitely better than I am in Starcraft. So if once upon a time you're competing with Europe's best, you're considered one of the best three players of your race, or even the best in a certain matchup, going to top 100 of top 200 of a server, that's a pretty big fall off, you know. Like so where I used to be competing at these European events and do pretty well, and in general, I would only say there were like three, four, five guys that were kind of unbeatable for me in the European scene. Todd being one of them. That douchebag always beats me. But other than that, I didn't feel there were many people that would always beat me. Obviously, more players could beat me, but I was really like on the upper echelon of European Warcraft 3 for a while. And so in StarCraft 2, being Grandmaster, especially if it's on NA, yeah, I know that does give me the feeling that I should act like a big shot. And guys, I'm so good at this game. Because for me personally, I'm not as good as I'd like to be, or not as good as I think I could be, you know. But and also, like, I think it's hard to understand for people in lower leagues. They often see the game in leagues, you know. They think like, let's say, you know, gold is a level, and then platinum is a level, master is a level, and then GM is a level, and that's so good. And then there is code S level, but it doesn't really work like that for me. I kind of just see the game in levels of ability being or like being able to play on a certain level, being able to execute. And there is such a noticeable difference even between, you know, low GM and the guy that's ranked 100. Like you really notice that in many ways. I'm not saying that the guy that's lower can never win, because obviously he can. But if they play 7 or 9 games, trust me that the higher ranked guy is gonna win if he's legitimately ranked like 150 or 200 MMR higher. And the difference between somebody with 5,600 or 6,100 is massive, just like the difference between someone with 6,100 and 6,600 MMR is really big. So it's hard for me to act like a big shot when I know there is like two, three levels, two guys that are actually on the top of this team. I don't feel like I'm in the final level, you know. I feel like there is like 3 or 4 levels until you reach the showtimes and nerd shows.
Are you ever tempted in like this day and age to buckle down, like take a couple of months and try and grind to the level of a Nurtio or a Showtime? Does that ever pull at you?
I mean, of course it does. And technically, these days, there is nothing stopping me because I don't work anymore at a company and just work for myself. The only issue is that it's just very hard. Like I be honest, the game is very hard. I also feel the harder you try at StarCraft, like when you really put everything to the side and you just want to get better, I think the more emotional in general you become, the more frustrating things can be. Well, if I just, you know, play on my stream and I'm hovering between 5.5 and 6K MMR, you know, some days I'll do my best and have a couple good games against like recognizable names perhaps as well. And then the next day where I feel like things are not going well, I'm like, well, screw it, you know, we're gonna go mass Oracle hostile, we're gonna make carriers today, and I lose a couple points. It's just to be honest, I'm like kind of scared of what it would do to my mentality and the enjoyment of the game if I would push myself that hard. And I mean, you shouldn't forget I'm getting a lot older as well. I just turned 30. I think it's unrealistic to think that, you know, within 3 months I can make that jump from being a decent player to being you know, a semi-top player, even like let's say like top 30 GM. I think even that would be unreachable. It's fun to think about, and you know, you never know. Maybe if they change the maps in Protoss favor a tiny bit and Phoenixes get a little buff, maybe I'm willing to give it a shot once. But I do play the game to get better. It's just I am not like 100% pushing myself every day because I live off streaming and I live off providing hopefully a fun quality stream. Obviously, I'm a human being. I'll get moody sometimes. I'll definitely, you know, whine from time to time. I try to keep that on the low, but sometimes it's just, you know, it's StarCraft. It gets to all of us a little bit. But if I would really just focus every day on getting better, this ain't about fun. We want to make it to the top. I think I'll become a pretty salty, obnoxious person. Because that just brings out the worst in me, and then I think people that have been watching my stream for years are just gonna be like, I don't know if I want to watch this guy anymore. He's nowhere near as fun and nice as I thought he was. So I think finding a middle road between getting better but still having fun is important to be a quality StarCraft streamer, at least if you're doing it full time like me.
So you kind of just got in there, kind of like a little bit. You just mentioned balance very briefly. I think it's pretty commonly held notion that Legacy of the Void is the best iteration of StarCraft 2 that we've had so far. But balance is still obviously a hot button topic. People talk about it all the time. People talk about your race, Protoss, all the time. It's like the most hot button balance discussion that ever exists. Lay it down for me. Talk a little bit about, Zerg, Terran, Protoss. Tell me a little bit about the map pool that's been so hotly contested in recent weeks. Lay down the law for me, dude.
I mean, that's obviously a pretty broad question. I'm not sure where to begin. Overall, I do absolutely think that Legacy of the Void is the best version of StarCraft 2 ever. It's also the most skilled version of StarCraft 2 ever. People that disagree with that, I think, are delusional, and they are romanticizing thoughts of old games and old players in their head, thinking that was like the most epic thing they've ever seen. While it's clear that Legacy of the Void is so much more dynamic, there is so much more movement, there is so much more potential. Even if somebody is not always able to do something, they always threaten. And like I have played against world-class Terran players as well in Wings and in HOTS, right? Like where I played against guys like MMA or other 4GG, whatever, like any of the top Terrans, even Tasia once, twice as well. And it was always very hard, but in Legacy and HOTS, you kind of sit back and chill a little bit. When I recently played against Beyond 7 times in Legacy of the Void, I'm just like, oh my god, like it just doesn't stop. There is just so much potential in everything that Terran can do early on. And that's not a balance complaint. It just means that you have to be on the edge of your seat. But that also means that if the Terran is better, he will exploit it. He's going to push you, push you, push you, and he'll go and find so many openings. And it's crazy. Like the way you get outplayed, it's just, it's almost like a surreal experience. So for me personally, it's without a doubt the most skillful version of StarCraft 2 ever. Balance-wise, I don't know, like things have been changing a lot over the last few weeks, so we need to see how it plays out. I don't have that many complaints about balance. The only thing I will say is that I'm a tiny bit worried about the ZVP meta, where I feel like it becomes almost brainless. Defend, Hydra, Bane, let's try to kill him. And I personally don't think that that's like the most enjoyable way to watch a matchup or just to see it overall. The new maps are obviously problematic for Protoss with lack of gases and wide open naturals. But I feel that's almost always the case, though. Every single time there's a new map pool, people are like, oh my god, worst map pool ever for Protoss. Literally unplayable, I'm done. And then 3 weeks later, like Showtime is dominating or something. So hopefully it's not going to be that bad, but right now this definitely seems to be slightly problematic, especially maps like Blood Bowl against Terran. I think it's just as much of a nightmare as it is against Zerg with that mass gold base and the one gas that Protoss has to deal with. But it's let's see how it plays out. Hopefully after Yon chopping, we'll know a lot more. We'll know the maps a lot better. If you look at like the last challenger where Serral went up against Showtime twice and the score was like 3-2, 3-2, amazing games, very close series. They recently played on this map pool and I think it was just a sweep, like 3-0, bam, like don't mess with Serral. And that definitely shows that like, okay, things have become a lot harder for Protoss. But I don't know, we'll see how it plays out. The other only thing that I've recently been complaining about a little bit, and this is a silly complaint, right? But this is me complaining more from the community point of view than what is a problem with the game at the highest level, or at pro level. Like at pro level, I don't think that one base Terran all-ins are that strong that they really need to get nerfed. They're strong, but I think world-class pro players can deal with it. But I actually find certain builds, especially with this map pool, where there's almost no ramp into the natural, it's just flat ground, so there is no high ground advantage. I think certain Terran all-ins, like a Reactor Cyclone all-in or a Cyclone Liberate all-in, I think that is so damn difficult to stop. And, we spoke about my level before. I see myself as a decent player. There's obviously a lot of people that are worse than me at this game. If I cannot deal with that properly, even if I know it's coming, and I think it's so damn hard to stop, like, what does that mean for people that are below me, people in Diamond League, people in Platinum League? If every PvD you play, the Terrans figure out how to build the proxy factory and walk a couple of cyclones to the Protoss base and the game ends. I think that is a problem that you truly have to worry about because we don't have as many casual players as we used to have, but you can't lose those because every game they play, they get one base all in by cyclones or it's Hydra Bane all in. It's important that it stays fun as well. So that is the only thing that has been worrying me a little bit. But when it comes to pro level balance, I try to stay out of it a tiny bit. I think it's in a decent place. I'd like to see some changes. I think a still meta is what I fear a lot more than imbalances. And we'll see how it plays out. I feel like these maps are still too fresh for me to sit here and just lay it all out like I'm Mr. Know-It-All. Let's wait and see how it plays out.
Speaking a little bit to early game builds and early game pressure, one of the most hotly contested units in Starcraft 2 Legacy of the Void is the Protoss Adept, which at points has been something that people say is just outright totally imbalanced. Do you think that the Adept was a good choice for Legacy of the Void Protoss? Do you think it fills that necessary role of an early game unit, or do you think that it needs to be changed in some way?
No, I actually don't understand why people hate the Adept so much, because I love the Adept for many reasons. And people were like, well, of course you're Protoss. But one of the most boring things about HOTS Protoss, and especially Wings Protoss as well, is that every single unit you would send out early game, either you all in or you don't send anything out because it will get picked off. Like a Zerg will get Zergling speed. They have map control. What am I going to do? Send a Zello out? The Zello gets surrounded, it dies. Send 2 Stalkers out? No, way too expensive. So you can only ever move out with a whole bunch of sentries. And did people really love the sentry meta that much? Because I thought that was pretty stupid. Like, here is 100 sentries with 100 force fields. And the Zerg units can't fight. They die one by one. Like, I didn't think that was fun. I didn't think not being able to move out until you have 5 or 6 sentries was very fun. So I think having a unit that is incredibly mobile and has a getaway ability is great. And before people say like, well, that's why they got the Mothership Core. Like, Mothership Core is not early game that you send out and recall home. It just doesn't really work like that. You need that Mothership Core at home to defend. You need to defend against run-bys. And even if you want to hit any sort of like pressure, if you just include a Mothership Core with that, either you have nothing at home or you also defend at home and then your pressure is just weak. So I actually think that the Adept was a very important unit. It's great to have some mobility on the map. I think it's great to have some eyes on the map, even though it lost one of his eyes and the other one has a pirate patch on it right now because the vision got nerfed a lot. I think that was slight overkill. And obviously I see that, I watched the GSL finals and I'm like, okay, I can acknowledge that there is a minor problem here. It's like just the 1,000 Adepts bouncing from base to base. And that's not what I think the unit was meant for. The unit is meant for some harassment, being able to take some decent fights in some regards, but above all, being able to get away from abilities while giving Protoss an idea of actually being of what's happening in the game and being out on the map. So in many ways, I actually like the Adept. Obviously, you need to balance it right, but I think the idea of the Adept is brilliant because that's what Protoss needed. Protoss was very, very boring when you just sat back until you have 6 Colossus with thermal lens and 4 Immortals, and then you had a couple of High Templars, and you're like, all right, let's party. Or it's Blink Stalker all in, or any sort of other stupid all in with Void Race. I actually think that the Adept is the unit that allowed Protoss to play that in between sitting back and between all inning. So that's why I like it.
You're really notorious for creating and crafting some zany builds, hashtag Roddy builds, and strategy. Back in the day, it was the Oracle that it was a very different unit. It was much more friendly. And you use the Oracle in combination with High Templars to cause like massive worker damage. And then, of course, the famous Proxy Cyclone. Or no, it's not Proxy Cyclone, it's going to be Proxy Tempest, for which actually a community tournament organizer group is named for. What about your playstyle causes these like really unique, really innovative builds to just happen? Is this something that you focus on?
It's a combination of a couple of things. Like being a streamer, I think it is important for me as I'm not a pro streamer. Once again, like I'm good and probably better than the majority of the people that watch me, but I'm not the best. So it doesn't make sense for me to look at a Showtime replay and be like, all right, this seems pretty effective. let's do this 100 times and see if I'm as good as him. And I'm not gonna be as good as him, and it's gonna be a little boring for the stream as well. And this is my income, is my living, so it's important for me to keep it fun. So I like to mess around a little bit. I like to try to come up with different ways to play the game. And another main reason is just my inability of being able to play this game at the absolute highest level. Like, a lot of people always think that StarCraft is all about builds, 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 but I think it's a lot more about execution than builds. Like I always say, if I would play against Sulky in his prime and he wants to beat me with Zergling Corruptor, he will. That's not because it's a good build, but it's because it's freaking Sulky. He's going to do whatever he wants. So when I see Showtime play in a certain way with, like, let's say, a little bit of Adept, Warp Prism, go up to Colossus, spread the units correctly, and then defend against drops with, like, a slow-moving army, I look at that and, like, yeah, it looks easy until you play it. Every game, I'll just get picked apart, and I hate that feeling. So I'm like, all right, let's find a different way of being able to deal with this, So part of it comes from trying to have a fun stream and do some crazy stuff and see if it's actually good. And part of it comes from my inability to play the game the way that the best players in the world do it.
It might surprise some people to find out that you actually turned 30 pretty recently. Happy belated birthday.
Mm-hmm.
Hitting the big 3-0 in esports is traditionally something of a rarity, although realistically as we advance further in the industry and stuff, more and more people are, becoming that age, just working in esports, which is great. What has it been like to kind of grow up through esports growing up? How different is the industry now from where it was, say, 5 years ago, where it was, say, 10 years ago?
I mean, now and 5 years ago was 2012. I wouldn't say that it's that different, other than the fact that it's obviously more professional in the details. You get taken care of a lot better when you're working events. The pay has gone up tremendously, I think, when it comes to events, and the prize pools for players have gone up tremendously. Teams are more professional, but 10 years ago, that's crazy. Like 10 years ago, people were still having esports as well, and obviously there were plenty of events, especially in Warcraft 3, but the way that broadcasting worked, the way that income worked, the ability for people to make money, that has changed so much. The amount of job opportunity, I don't know, like 10 years ago, it was completely different ballgame. It's just not even remotely the same. Obviously, the biggest game changer ever has been Twitch. Like, Twitch is just drastically changed the entire landscape of esports and professional gaming, casual gaming, the exposure that esports is getting. Like, it's all very common these days for people to know about esports. Like 10 years ago, I had to explain every single time that I was very good at a video game and that I traveled to an event to play it. And people looked at me like it was the oddest thing in the world, like, you make money by playing a game? And then they always do, like, the stupid joystick. So you're like, with your joystick? It's like, no. I play with a mouse and keyboard. But these days, it's very normal. You tell anybody, like an immigration officer, they're like, yeah, like they know, they've seen it on the news. So it's just a lot more mainstream by now, and probably a lot more socially accepted too. Like, even in my social circles, when it comes to my Dutch friends or acquaintances of people that I know, when I had to explain that competitive gaming was the oddest thing ever, they just didn't get it. But it seems like these days people are like, yeah, like they know that it's possible. They know that the opportunity is there on the internet.
Some of your esports peers, like Apollo and Mr. Bitter, they've moved away from on-camera roles and they've moved into more of a production, behind-the-scenes organizing position. As an esports veteran yourself, do you ever think about doing the same, or do you want to keep commentating for the rest of your career? Is there any possibility that you'll even move away from esports entirely?
I don't see myself moving away from esports, because this is pretty much what I have going for myself, and this is where I've put in all my energy and passion for the last 12 years. So it would be very odd to suddenly switch and be like, what? I'm going to become a journalist, or something even remotely different that doesn't have anything to do with esports. So I don't think I'll be moving away from esports anytime soon. You can never say never, because you don't know how the future goes. Obviously, I've been thinking about that kind of stuff too, but I just hate giving up something that I absolutely, truly enjoy almost every single minute and day for a job that might be fun from time to time, but that I wouldn't necessarily enjoy 24/7. Like, if I think into the far future, there is one dream job that I think I would love to have, and that's like maybe eSports manager for Warcraft 4 in Europe or something, like community manager for eSports, Warcraft 4. I think that kind of stuff, that'd be awesome, man. I think I'd really enjoy that, kind of fulfill the footsteps of my idol, Mr. Roberts, who does a great job at Blizzard. Like something like that would be fun, and that's a job that I can see myself truly, genuinely enjoy and be probably pretty good at as well because I've been around for so long. But just to get like a random office job for the sake of getting an office job because I'm getting older and I'm not sure if that's right for me. At least not now. Maybe in the future, but right now I enjoy what I do too much to give it up for something that I could possibly enjoy a lot less.
In a blog post reflecting on your year, your 2012 year, the first year that you spent in America, you mentioned how people might have an incorrect image of you, portraying you as kind of this playboy, party animal type. You wrote, quote, "I'm honestly not that wild or crazy and might even be quite a softie, but let's keep that between us," end quote. Is this
That's
image...
why I
No, it's great. It's a great line. Is this image of like party animal Roddy, does that ever like grate on you or bother you in any way, shape, or form?
No, it doesn't bother me because I did enjoy myself in my 20s, I'd say, like whenever I had the opportunity, and I definitely I feel like the best of it, had a lot of fun, crazy nights, sometimes definitely a little too crazy, but you live and you learn, you grow up. The only thing that kind of bothers me is that there's like generally people out there that think that every Saturday night before a big final of an event, I go to the bar and club at 3 a.m. and get freaking wasted, and then the next day I show up and I smoke weed and I'm ready to go. It's like, are you guys stupid? Like I care about this, like I take it pretty damn serious. Obviously in 2011, 2010, I just started and esports wasn't the same. Everybody was a little crazier because we didn't really know what we were doing anyway. But these days everything is pretty damn professional. So I also approach it very professional, and I don't drink before casting days. I don't party. I don't stay out late. Like I'm really dedicated to my job. So obviously then when people just think that I don't give a fuck and I'm just drunk everywhere wherever I go, like I think that's kind of stupid. So that's the only thing that kind of bothers me. Other than that, like no, I've had my crazy days, and if people want to make fun of it, it's all good.
In the fall, you moved from California back to the Netherlands. Nathanius has said that there were supposed to be more working opportunities for Starcraft 2 in the California area. Did you have similar hopes and expectations for this year?
You mean last year?
Last year, yeah, 2016.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. I had the idea that we were still going to do quite a few studio shows, stuff like Challenger, stuff like qualifiers for IEMs, and I figured that, actually we have to go back one step before that, because obviously we used to have the old WCS format, right, that we had from 2013 to 2015. Very simple, there's Challenger, then there is Premier League, 8 groups, 4 groups, quarterfinals, semifinals, finals. This went on for 3 years, lots of ups and downs, lots of great memories, like, Bomber against Big Baby, awesome final, etc., etc. But at the end of 2015, players, managers, casters, they all had a vote in what should have happened. And I actually voted for the change. So I voted for the newer system that got rid of Premier League. A lot of people were at first like, oh my God, how can we go without Premier League? But Premier League was definitely becoming a little dull. There was little excitement. There were not really any new faces. It was kind of like the same. I don't mean this in a mean way, but often B-tier Koreans that were not winning GSL, they would win these Premier League events, and it didn't get very exciting. Up to one point where the entire top 8 is top 8 Koreans that are not actually top 8 in Korea. So it would be very different if we had like Maru and SOS battling it out there every week. Then I wouldn't care. But seeing the lesser guys, take the opportunity away from American up-and-coming players, to me, that system, it seemed flawed. It didn't feel right. And I don't think it was right for the scene, even though it was good for me. It was good for Nate because we had a lot of shows, but we voted for the interest of the scene. And I still thought, like I stayed in America because I still thought we were still going to have at least some qualifiers, some like IM qualifiers, Dreamer qualifiers, and like WCS Challenger, so at least some studio shows. I figured it was going to be less than the 8 days of Premier League, the 4 days of the next 4 groups, and then the offline event. But I thought it was still going to be a reasonable amount of work that could justify me living in an expensive area, far away from family and friends. However, at the end of the year, the last studio show I did was in February. We did a little college tournament that ran from January to February. It was like 6, 7 shows. For the rest of the year, I had a super busy year. Don't get me wrong. Like I did an insane amount of traveling in 2016, the most I ever did by far. So I was exhausted. I was tired, but I did nothing in LA. There was not a single job since February that I wouldn't have got if I lived in Holland instead of LA. And then thinking about the fact that I'm paying for a car there, which was expensive, all the bills are expensive, rent was incredibly expensive. Like I hated my place. I generally hated it. I ended up there in a weird scenario in a rush. I had no choice. I just picked it because I had to pick something, and like my monthly costs were like without my car, it's like 1,200, and including the car, it's like 2,000. And for the people who care, I had a Volkswagen GTI, but because I'm a non-American, they charge me to the fullest on everything. So I'm paying like $2,000 a month for living in a place that I don't really enjoy. And I was almost never there. I was always on the road. There were more tournaments in Europe than there were in America. So at a certain point, I made the difficult decision that it would be better for me to go home, which is obviously very sad because it looks like, you're giving up on America and things are not going well. And he failed on his adventure. But, I just had to be realistic. I was never there. Whenever I was there, I often didn't enjoy it because I hated my living environment. And I didn't see the point in moving to a different place because I think moving is frustrating. But let's say I would live in a cheaper area in the United States, and then what? Like, so what? I live in a cheap area. I still have no local work. So why should I live there, Unless I would have the ambition to live there for the rest of my life, apply for a green card. But as much as I love America, and I think it is a beautiful country and a great place, I have family, I have friends, and I'm still Dutch. I have Feyenoord, so I just kind of felt that, I wasn't ready to make that commitment yet. As much as awesome as America is, and I wouldn't say I'd never go back because I think it's great, and if the opportunity is there, maybe I would. But this was definitely the right time for me to go home because living there for a year and a couple months while almost never being there, just paying for everything. And then whenever I was actually there, I was often very unhappy because I was just by myself and nothing else to do. There was just no point in staying there.
You talked about, it being like the right time to go. And you also touched on the kind of maybe the concept that the journey coming to an end in a less than favorable way. I remember, like, on Snapchat, you were kind of chronicling, on one day in particular, you were like, your Snapchat story was like you selling your car. And you seemed pretty down, but you also seemed to be trying to make the best of the situation. What were some of the emotions? Like, was it really bittersweet? Was it more bitter than sweet? Just kind of like a necessary evil type of situation, that big move?
Yeah, no, that was actually that was really sad, man, because that's the first car I ever owned. First, I leased it, which is a mistake, by the way, guys. If you want to get a car, just buy the car, don't lease it. But I was, young and stupid, and I thought I was gonna get a cool Volkswagen GTI. Let's go. But then after the lease, like that was one of the downsides. I signed to buy the car literally at the beginning of 2015, in the hopes and dreams that I would really need it. The car was just kind of standing there all the time because I wasn't even really going anywhere since I work from home if I'm not casting. And if I'm casting, I fly somewhere. I don't drive. So it just felt sad. That in that regard, it felt sad, and it was a horrible decision to get the car in the beginning of 2015. And yeah, then having to leave it, well, I feel like I paid so much of it. And then even though I leased it for a long time and then I started paying off, by the time I finally sold it, like the car had a, how do I say that? It had a matte black print over it. But because the car often just stood there for like 3, 4, 5 weeks, because I was always on the road, the sun would burn like little marks in the print. So the print wasn't in the best condition anymore. And at the end of the day, I had to sell it for, what did they give me? I went to like CarMax or something because I had no time. So in the end, I had to pay like, they said like, oh, we'll take the car for 11,000. But I still had like 12,600 open on the car. So I sold my car, but I had to pay them $1,600 to take the car from me and pay off Volkswagen. And it just felt also fucking terrible. I was like, man, like I wouldn't feel bad about this if I could just pay that off over time and I still enjoy my car, but now I'm leaving it, I'm leaving my car. And that really felt like the end. And I sold it like 50 miles away from my house. So I was just sitting there in the middle of nowhere. And I was like, fuck, how am I going to get home now? And it's like, God, it's just a sad day, and it definitely felt sad. Like I'm not gonna lie, when I really decided that I was gonna leave America, I was pretty sad because I felt that I just didn't maybe get everything out of it that I should have had. But you know, at the same time, I tried to be realistic. It's not like the end of the world. I still had a sick, unique opportunity to live there for a couple of years, and I generally felt that I'd be more happy in the Netherlands. So it's like, you know what? Let's wave the white flag and surrender and say goodbye to Hollywood.
And hopefully you have found that moving was kind of good. Hopefully you're enjoying yourself back home in the Netherlands now, right?
No, for sure. It definitely feels a lot more calming. I just felt from time to time even like really stressed out in 2016. I was just not happy. I was kind of like in a miserable spot. The only time I was happy is when I was like traveling, going to events and see people. But then a moment like that's fun, but that's always only temporarily. Like it's 1 week and then you go home. Just being there all the time alone, it made me like I've never been a depressed person. I'm a pretty happy person and I'm super appreciative of what I have. But when I was just sitting there all the time by myself on the other side of the world, and obviously I had Mr. Bitter, but he was often busy. Like Ben is a super busy guy. Nate was with his girlfriend and lived in North Hollywood, and driving from my place to North Hollywood, it's like pretty much always a nightmare. And then he has a streaming schedule, I have a streaming schedule, so we just didn't see each other much. We saw each other once in a while, but just one evening in 2 weeks, it's not gonna turn me into a happy person. As much as I love Nate, that's not gonna save my life. So I was just not in a happy spot. I wouldn't say depressed because I think that's a pretty serious condition, but unhappy is definitely the right word. And I feel I feel just a lot more at ease, a lot more calm at home right now, and I'm just kind of chilling and see what the future brings. But I don't feel like I'm in this uncomfortable rushing spot where I feel like everything is about to end and I have to make something happen and I'm not happy. So it's just better. It's more calming.
I take fan questions, of course, through Twitter and Team Liquid, and now my Discord too. There's a Discord channel for it, and on Reddit, and basically anywhere that you guys can give me fan questions, I'll take them. So let's dig into some fan questions. I picked out some of the ones that I thought were pretty good here. Harstem, who maybe shouldn't be considered a fan at all because he's very notorious, famous Dutch Protoss player himself. The year of Harstem. Harstem asked. Go ahead.
Before you go ahead and ask the question, Harstem also started playing Warcraft 3 on a very young age, and I was actually playing Warcraft 3 back then as well. And when Harstem went to his first event, he was a very, very, very small boy. Like he was, I don't know how old he was, maybe like 12 or 13 years old. That's the first time I saw Kev. And he was just like this tiny, kind of dorky looking little guy. And his name was Kevin. He's like, hey, I'm Kevin. And so everybody is like, okay, hey, little Kevin, because he's the little one. And I was the older Kevin. I was the established Kevin. But now that fucker is taller than me, and he's very bigger than me as well. So I guess the names have changed. He caught up to me. He feels bad, man.
Well, I guess next generation Big Kev. He asks, are there any career moves that you considered were a mistake? Do you have any regrets in your esports career overall?
Well, other than what we just spoke about, in 2015, the beginning of 2015, I should have just gone home to Holland. That would have been, no, not 2015, 2016, excuse me. The beginning of 2016, I should have just gone home. I should have not bought the car. I should have just gone home. And then I think last year would have been pretty damn sweet for me. Other than that, I have to think a little bit. Career moves like I don't regret going to work for NESL, even though that didn't work out because NESL was just not a great company in the end. But I don't regret it. It was a great opportunity, and I was earning a lot more there than I was at ESL in the beginning because at ESL I got minimum wage. So that was that. No, I wouldn't say that was a bad career move. Other than that, oh yes, there's one thing I absolutely regret, and that's right now. I feel like it's just not worth the time anymore. It's like when it comes to the amount of time you have to put in and what you get out of it, it's just not worth it. But if I could go back in time, the only thing I would do is in 2010, I would start a YouTube channel and just like upload some videos every day, every second day, because I'm convinced that by now, otherwise I would have probably had like 200,000-300,000 subscribers or something. I really, really, really dropped the ball on that one. I was just uncomfortable with editing. I didn't really know how YouTube worked, and I often, if I do something, I want to do it right, or I don't do it. And in 2010, I made a YouTube page. I even made a like design, overlay, it all looked good. The only thing I had to do is starting to upload videos, and I didn't do it. So I will regret that forever because that really could have changed everything. But other than that, I feel pretty blessed. I'm happy with how everything is going. I never regret sticking with StarCraft since day one. I don't regret taking a pay cut from NESL to not work on World of Tanks, but instead focus on StarCraft in my own time. That's actually funny. If you wonder how I started streaming, is I used to be a full-time employee for NESL, but NESL was going to stop with StarCraft because the investors were not happy. So they picked up a World of Tanks contract, and they said that the only way that I would keep my own salary is if I would, kind of drop StarCraft and just work full-time on World of Tanks, and I wouldn't get days off to travel to any StarCraft events, or I could make a deal with them where I would earn, how much was it? Let me just get the facts straight. Uh, yeah, 1,400 per month less than I actually did, but then I would get 3 days every 2 weeks off. So 1 week, 1 day, and the other 2 days. So 6 working days in the month, I'd get 1,400 less or something. But I would still have the ability to travel to StarCraft events. I thought about it, and obviously to a lot of people, taking a $1,400 pay cut seems pretty damn stupid. But to me, it just felt like I'm just going to use those days to focus on streaming. And in that way, I can still stay relevant in StarCraft. I still make a little bit of money working for NESL on the side for whatever they need me, segments, maybe observing or whatever. But I can mostly focus on StarCraft, focus on StarCraft streaming. And in that way, I'll stay relevant and should still be able to be a part of the scene. So I actually thought that was a great investment. I definitely don't regret that because I love streaming and my stream has been doing pretty all right.
You mentioned there that you regret not starting a YouTube channel and really keeping up with it back in 2010. I believe you tried to kickstart your YouTube work last year as well, didn't you? And it really didn't pan out. What were some of the
Uh,
issues?
I mean, to be honest, it's just the issues were that I just didn't have the motivation truly for it, and then I have zero video editing skills, just none, nada. So it's kind of just like let's make a video, but in general, I don't enjoy recording stuff very much. I enjoy live. I enjoy talking with an audience. I enjoy doing a live show. I love being like generally surprised. But when it comes to recording stuff and like faking excitement because I already know what's gonna happen or something, I don't do that. I've never done it. So I'm like, damn, what am I actually gonna put on this? I was like, well, I can just put stream highlights, but obviously a lot of people that they stream, they watch it live, and otherwise they don't watch it. And just overall, I wouldn't say the StarCraft audience is not there. It's still sort of there, but it's just very, very hard to reach the StarCraft viewer on YouTube right now. So I don't know. It's not like I totally gave up on it. I just didn't really upload videos the way that I had in mind. What I want to do is that I want to learn how to edit videos once. Just sit down. I'm gonna get a new computer soon. Should be really good. Maybe I'll buy a nice camera as soon as I get the next Twitch paycheck, and then maybe from that point on, I will start trying to upload some cool stuff on the same YouTube channel, and then just take it from there. See how it goes. But yeah, last year was just not in the right time, and I didn't have the motivation, or the tools, or the skills to really go for it. But even if I would, it's not the same. Like that doesn't change the fact that I won't regret, because like it doesn't matter if I started in 2010, I'd have such a big viewer base on YouTube that I could upload myself going to the bathroom and I'll get 10,000 views. It'd be great.
On Discord, the famous mapmaker Avex asked, what do you think Protoss is missing that would make its matchups feel less one-sided for viewers, like PvZ?
I don't know. That's difficult to answer. I think there was a time that PvT was very fun to watch, like in a really good state, and I think even right now it's all right. I think maybe we need to nerf the War Prism a tiny bit. I actually think that the Prism is maybe a tiny bit too strong, and it can just do game-ending amounts of damage because it's so hard to deal with, and other people often just grab everything and then they go for it, so it comes down to one big battle. But I don't know. I really don't think Protoss is in a bad place where I think there is like this huge problem with Protoss. Like if it's up to me, I would maybe nerf like the power of the carrier. I'd nerf the HP, but I definitely nerf the build time, so you could just do more fun stuff with it. I would change the Void Ray in a way that you can actually do fun stuff with the Void Ray, because I think the Void Rays are garbage right now, absolute garbage unit. The only time it's good is for an all-in to kill a bunker or to kill some corruptors or something. But maybe in PvP there is some weird Void Ray immortal stuff, but it's just kind of a dead unit, and I think that's just a problem with Protoss. You know, like Void Rays are dead. Carriers are a little bit dead because it just takes so long to get them. You die against Hydra Bay. Tempest right now feels kind of dead. So I guess maybe you'll see the same stuff a little too much. I don't know. I don't think that's a huge problem. Just need some minor fixes, but don't ask me which ones.
Also on the Discord, Badrocks asks, "What is your who? Excuse me, who is your favorite StarCraft 2 player of all time and why?"
It has to be Rain, the Korean Protoss. Rain was just, I feel like Rain was way ahead of its time. And if you ask me about the most memorable moment ever, it's like the semi-finals of BWI in 2012, I believe it was, in Shanghai, China, where he's playing in the semi-finals against Creator. And at this point, like, Rain is the freaking best player in the world. And he's supposed to win this stupid tournament. And there's like game 5 of Cloud Kingdom, and he's on the right top side, and Creator is just foregating him. And every single force field, which like it was really hard to hold it back then, every force field just let one unit slip through too much. So it was like this foregate that kept on going, and eventually he just didn't have enough energy, and he kept losing the sentries, and then the foregate worked, and I was just like, no, you were the chosen one, Rain, because the way that like Rain split his Colossus, like when he had this beautiful setup always of like 8 Colossus, let's say 6 Immortals, and then a couple Archons, and then the Zealots coming from the side, like the way he did it was just fucking art. Like his army would walk around in a ball, and the moment he would see anything on his minimap, it's like he had a hotkey or something. It's just like, whoop, perfect arc. Like every time. He did that so fast, so smooth, better than anyone. And I think that's like my favorite Protoss thing that I can remember. When it comes to non-Koreans, I'd probably actually say that Naniwa gave me the most fun and enjoyment. Like, if I think of a finals like Naniwa Linog, even though he lost, like, holy hell, man, I was losing it. Those games are so damn cool. And, you know, the runs in GSL. So I'd say Naniwa for non-Koreans and Rain for overall.
You've been like pretty tied into the North American scene because like, you know, you moved from Europe to work with an ASL, and then you were doing WCSNA, you know, living in California. Do you ever kind of regret maybe becoming so centered in NA StarCraft? Do you ever wish that maybe you could have done that in Korea?
No, not really. I've always really enjoyed the foreign scene. I enjoyed the European scene a lot the first 2 years of StarCraft when I was in Europe. Moving to America was fun. It was exciting. What I did I went over that before. It was just sad at one point to feel there was almost no NA scene anymore. It was just the Koreans coming over and dominating those events. And that definitely took some of the enjoyment away. I mean, if you're asking me, would I've loved to cast a GSL? Like, hell yeah. But, like, would I move to Korea to cast, like, the lesser tournaments, or just to sit there in a small apartment by myself to every now and then cast StarCraft? Like, I don't think that would make me very happy, you know. Like, if, let's say in a different universe where StarCraft would just be booming out of control and they would need another Archon duo to be in Korea because Tesos just can't keep up. There was too much passion overwhelming. Like, I'm sure that Nate and I would be down to do it. But yeah, that's just not realistic right now. That's not happening. So, Korea is awesome. I love it, but I don't think I want to live there. And if I would live there, then, you know, it has to be a well-organized life. You know, I don't want to wake up every day not having anything to do. It would really have to be like, all right, you know, you live here, this is your job, go do the job, have fun, like have some structure in life, which is very important for me. Otherwise, I just get kind of unhappy. So it's sad, yes, no, I don't know. It's hard to answer, but I don't know. I'm happy with how everything went in StarCraft and still excited about the future. And maybe I can fulfill my dream of one day casting a tiny bit of GSL, even if it's just a round of 32. I just want to say live from Seoul, Korea with taste testers once, that my life is complete. I can die as a happy man.
Truly, that is all our goal. Everyone who watches Starcraft, even once, that is their goal.
And then at the end of the broadcast, instead of tasteless saying it, I want to be the guy saying, I love you guys. Bye bye. That's all I want to do.
Aw, so wholesome. I support this goal. Toast asks, what is your favorite televised or streamed match that you've ever played? If we want to look up a VOD of Rotterdam, the Warcraft 3 player, or StarCraft player 2, what is the one that we need to see?
That I ever played. Well, there is one that jumps to my mind immediately, and that is my Night Elf. So I was an Orc player, but I like to play Night Elf. It's my Night Elf against Focus, one of the top Korean Orcs in Warcraft 3. People often whine about Orc being too strong, but I always hated playing against Night Elf on Twisted Meadows. So one day I was like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna start playing Night Elf on Twisted Meadows and see what I lose against. And very quickly I realized that I almost lost against nothing because I was like, oh my god, Night Elf is so good. I'm terrible with this race, but it's really easy to beat Protoss. So I started playing Night Elf for a while on Twisted Meadows, and I played this one game against Focus. It's just, I don't know, it was one of the coolest, most epic games I've ever had. When I think about StarCraft 2, I have to think televised, right? Uh, I mean, I didn't play that many televised or streamed games, like other than on my own stream, obviously. I have to think for a split second. Only like earlier this year, I played in the wider team league and I beat Hate Me at Denver, which was pretty damn cool because those are really good Zergs in Europe. But yeah, that wasn't like that big time or mainstream. I don't know, man. Maybe I had a very fun Proxy Tempest game against Semper in WCS America qualifiers once that became a little famous. I I don't know. StarCraft 2 is hard. My favorite StarCraft 2 games are games that have probably never been streamed or shown. Like I void rate LA All In MMA after IEM Kiev, and that made me very happy. I made MMA very upset. So then he hosted 3 more games and he beat the living crap out of me. Like that was fun. Anything else? I don't think there's anything that truly stands out. I mean, I beat Neep once on stream. That was pretty cool when he was ranked 1 NA. I beat Pilly on stream when he was ranked 1 NA. Just small things like that. But I don't think there's one game that truly stands out for me. But Warcraft 3, I'd say my Night Elf game against Focus. That's a classic.
Let's pretend that this year at BlizzCon, Warcraft 4 is announced. They're going to make it. They're going to do it. They're going to make it happen. Do you think that there's any chance that you would return as a player? There are pros in other scenes for other games, like Street Fighter's Alex Valle, who've been around for years and who are maybe a little bit up in age. You said a little earlier in the interview that, you're getting old, can't be competitive in the same way. Do you think that there's a chance, though, that Warcraft 4 Rotterdam comes back and reclaims that Orc prestige?
Well, I'll definitely play the living hell out of the game, but I don't know. Like, there's a good chance that if that happens, that I'd obviously be asked to be on the desk for the very first event or the second event because of my history with Warcraft 3 and my experience in StarCraft 2. So that only makes sense. But I don't know. What I would probably do is just literally play the game full time since the very first minute I have my hands on it and then see how good I am. And every event I can qualify for, I will try to qualify. If I don't make it, I'm willing to be on the desk. I'm willing to cast. Sounds fun. If I do make it, I'll play. That's the only thing I can say.
Do you have any tips for anybody trying to kind of rise up through esports, trying to become a personality now in 2017?
I just think you just have to focus on something you excel at because there's a lot of people who would like to do something in esports, who have passion for esports, but you just need to focus on something that you're good at, whatever it may be. Like maybe you're good at playing, then make your name through playing and then transition. Maybe you're very funny, well then write great articles or make funny videos at events. You have to travel to events, meet people, shake people's hands, make connections, and then just create great content. Just by sitting there saying you want to be part of it, you're never going to get there. You have to stand out in one way or the other, whether that is by becoming a pro gamer or just pushing out your own content, start casting, whatever it is, like just gotta grind. And I'd say in the beginning, focus on one element. Like don't try to do 4 things a little bit because then you'll never stand out. either go all out on, one thing or the other.
So, what are your expectations for the future of StarCraft 2? WCS 2018 has been pre-announced. We're very lucky to say so. It's going to look a lot like the current system of WCS. Are there any changes that you would make in the future to StarCraft's WCS system?
Maybe more focus on the qualifiers. I'd love to see storylines being highlighted a lot better because for the game to stay interesting and the people to genuinely care about the names they see on the display when the big events are going on, people need to know the story. So one of the things that I actually love to do in the future is there is a TV show in the Netherlands where it's like I don't know her name, but it's this girl and she just goes to people's house and she stays over for the night. What I'd really love to do is like, I don't know, we'll call it one night in Rotterdam or something, but I just like the moment I have a car and a camera, I travel around and maybe visit a couple of like the most prominent European pro gamers and make a little highlight, like let them tell a story, see where they live, see them play a little bit, talk about their dreams and plans, just to create some really cool, unique side content, and then get people more interested to follow that specific person, whoever they may be a fan of, follow their journey on forward. And I think that's one of the most important things we have to focus on. Like creating good events is awesome. I think with Katowice, we had a fantastic start of 2017. I think that's one of the best events ever. It was just so good all around. Now it's just important to not host StarCraft events for the sake of it, but actually really put in a lot of work into it. And whenever you do create content, make it count, make it be worth it, and then hopefully people will still enjoy StarCraft for a long time because I know I will, and I know there's plenty of others out there, but obviously we can't survive on like 300 diehards. We need more. We need to appeal to the masses as well. But I think if we all just put in the right amount of work, I still believe that we're going to have plenty of years of very good StarCraft ahead of us.